With me now is the designer and activist Vivienne Westwood and Alexander Nekrassov, a former advisor to the Russian government. Vivienne Westwood first. Russia says this is pure provocation. Greenpeace knew the risks, didn't they?
I'm sure it is provocation, definitely. I'm here, I'm very honoured to speak for Greenpeace. I hope I'm saying the right thing. I would imagine it's provocation because they are opposed to an incredible, terrible provocation, which is the provocation that we're going to ruin the whole Arctic and the whole planet with it.
So you needed to provoke, Greenpeace needed to provoke for a good cause.
They need to be visibly protesting, yes, and the more attention that they get, the better that is. And I expect to try to scale an oil rig could be seen as provocation, but the danger that we face, you know, far outweighs anything. Thank God for Greenpeace.
Alexander Nekrassov may have been provocative, but it was justified.
Well, Greenpeace did the same thing with the same rig in 2011. They were not arrested, they were not detained, they were told, please don't do this again. They promised not to do this, not to climb on oil rigs. And that's why I think this time the Russian authorities were a bit angry with them. They're also a bit...
Well, I mean, the prospect of 15 years in jail.
First. The Russian authorities are edgy and at the same time because some of the terrorist groups in Russia have promised to hit oil targets because of the Sochi Olympics. And unfortunately, the fuss that the Western governments have stirred around those Olympics is hatred, I would say, against the Olympics.
That's you mentioned terrorists there, though.
That's what I'm saying to you, because terrorists use all sorts of camouflage to penetrate targets. So that was a completely different situation on this account. And they did break their promise. They were told you can float around as much as you want. You never, ever climb oil rigs.
Vivienne Westwood, Greenpeace broke its promise.
There's two things we have to do. We have to save the rainforest and we have to save the Arctic. What we're facing is mass extinction of the human race in a very short time. We don't quite know when, but soon. And if we don't do that, forget it. And Greenpeace probably will become even more civilly disobedient because of the urgency of sorting out this problem of preventing people doing that, having a whole moratorium on the Arctic. It's an easy thing to do. If these controllers of the oil, the Putins and the heads of corporations would stop their macho competition, you know, I mean, then, and maybe take the moral ground, call the bluff, start to try to save the world instead of destroying it.
So you've got to get angrier, basically. Environmental activists have to get angrier because the stakes are higher.
Well, I mean, these are my friends. I just think it's, I know some of them. And to be the wife or husband of an activist, it must be just so nightmarish what's happening. It's very, very serious that they must be given back to their families immediately.
Do you have some sympathy for the families of...
Well, I have some sympathy for the people who were not warned by Greenpeace, who took part in this action, were not warned of the possible consequences and dangers, because Greenpeace should warn its members when they're going to do things like that. And let me tell you another thing. If these guys climbed on an American oil rig, they might have a bullet between their eyes at the moment, because the security on oil installations is very strict these days, very strict. And when Greenpeace tried to cut off the whaling in Japan, you know, they fired at them with live ammunition.
I'm not saying Russia's any worse than America. I would never say that.
Well, America, you see, it can go into any country these days like it did yesterday, and nobody says anything. Yeah. You're not objecting to them going into Libya and hijacking somebody and then to Somalia. So the point is this, I think, you know, when Russia is involved in anything, there's too much, how can I put it, too much overwhelming desire to blame Russia for everything. I think the Greenpeace carries the responsibility for its members to be warned of possible consequences.
But you're basically treating activists like terrorists, aren't you?
I'm not treating them like terrorists. I just told you that there are fears that terrorists might strike oil installations in Russia. Well, that is why you can come in a boat and pretend to be anybody you want. Terrorists do that. They dress up as women and blow up people. So what can you expect?
So if you're not treating activists like terrorists, why not just release them?
Well, I think that because they broke their promise, Greenpeace, I think they will be released at some point. I don't think President Putin has already said this is not piracy. So
I want to make the point that Greenpeace has got incredible credibility. They don't take money from governments, they don't take money from business. All their funding comes from the public. They're very, very popular with the public because the public know they're there to try to protect them and to help them. And I think it's very important to get these people back. And the public would definitely be against the whole thing.
Well, there's massive public support for the Greenpeace activists in terms of demonstrations across the world this weekend.
Well, what can you do when a PR campaign is run like that? You know, what can you say against it? And on the face of it, it looks as if these people really wanted to do something good. But I'm explaining to you the background to the story. And when you know this background, you can understand the nervousness of the security people on all oil installations, not just that one.
Alexander Nekrassov and Vivienne Westwood, thank you very much for joining me.